What if the most terrifying stories aren't the ones with scary monsters, but the ones with no ending at all? Some mysteries are more than just puzzles. They're like dark shadows that stretch across history. They start with a simple question. Where did they go? Who did this? What happened that night? But they end in silence. These aren't just cold cases. They are stories that have grown into modern myths, shaping our fears and our fascination with the unknown. They are the stories of an entire colony that vanished into thin air, a killer who played a game with an entire city and was never caught, and a group of friends who walked into the mountains and met a fate so bizarre it defies explanation. We're going to explore the dark legacy these mysteries left behind, and you'll see that the truth we can't find is often more haunting than any monster we could imagine. The Whispering Woods, Roanoke's lost colony. Imagine this. You sail across a dangerous ocean for months. You land in a new, wild world. A place that feels like a different planet. You are one of over 100 people, men, women, and children starting a new life. Your leader, a man named John White, has to sail back to England for supplies. He kisses his daughter and his granddaughter, Virginia Dare, the very first English child born in the Americas. Goodbye. He promises to be back as soon as he can. Now imagine you are John White. Your return trip is delayed by war for 3 long years. 3 years of worrying, wondering, and hoping. When you finally get back to the small settlement you helped build on Roanoke Island, off the coast of modern-day North Carolina, you find it's completely empty. The houses are gone, taken down carefully, not violently. The defensive wall around the settlement is still standing. There are no bones, no signs of a struggle, no blood in the dirt. It's as if over 115 people, your entire community, your family, just evaporated. The only thing you find is a single word carved into a wooden post: Croatoan. This was the chilling reality for John White in the year 1590. This is the beginning of the first great American mystery, the story of the lost colony of Roanoke. Isn't just about people who went missing. It's about the silence they left behind, a silence that has echoed for over 400 years. The search for answers begins before he left 3 years earlier. John White had agreed on a plan with the colonists. If they had to leave for some reason, they were to carve their destination into a tree. If they were in danger, they were to carve a Maltese cross above the name. He found the name Croatoan carved, but there was no cross. This gave him a flicker of hope. Croatoan was the name of a nearby island, now called Hatteras Island. It was also the name of a friendly Native American tribe that lived there. Maybe they had simply moved. Maybe they were safe. But he could never find out. A massive storm, a hurricane, was brewing. His ship's crew refused to search Croatoan Island. They were scared. The weather was turning deadly, and they forced the ship to turn back to Europe. John White would die years later, never knowing what happened to his daughter or his granddaughter. The mystery was sealed. For centuries, that single... So, what happened to them? Where did over 100 people go? The answer isn't simple, and every possible explanation only seems to lead to more questions. Theory 1. They became part of the native world. This is the most popular and, for many historians, the most likely theory. The colonists were running low on food and supplies. John White's return was long overdue. It makes perfect sense that they would seek help from their neighbors. The Croatoan carving wasn't a cry for help, but a message. A simple note saying, "We went to live with the Croatoan people." There is some evidence to back this up. Later stories, for decades, even centuries after the colony vanished, explorers and settlers in the area heard stories from Native American tribes about people with light-colored eyes and European features living among them. Some claim to be descended from these people. Archaeological finds. In recent years, archaeologists have been digging on Hatteras Island, the location of the Croatoan tribe. They have found English pottery, parts of a sword, and other European items mixed in with Native American artifacts from that exact time period. This suggests that at least some of the colonists might have made it there and lived alongside the tribe. But if this is true, why did they disappear from the history books? Why didn't they make contact with later English settlers? The answer might be sad and simple. They may have just blended in over generations. Their English culture would have faded away, replaced by a new way of life. They didn't vanish. They just changed. Their story didn't end. It just became part of someone else's. Theory 2. A violent end. This is the darker possibility. The world the colonists landed in was not empty. It was home to many powerful and competing Native American tribes. While the Croatoan were friendly, others were not. One powerful leader, Chief Powhatan, who was the father of Pocahontas, later told English settlers in Jamestown that he had wiped out the Roanoke colonists. He said they had started living with another tribe that refused to join his powerful confederacy, so he had them all killed. He even showed the Jamestown settlers some items he claimed belonged to the dead colonists. Was he telling the truth? Maybe. Or maybe he was just trying to intimidate the new English arrivals at Jamestown, warning them not to cross him. The biggest problem with this theory is the lack of evidence at the Roanoke settlement itself. No signs of a fight, an attack big enough to kill or capture over 100 people would have been messy. The Spanish saw the English colony as a threat, a base for English pirates to attack their treasure ships. A Spanish raiding party could have destroyed the colony. But again, there is no evidence, and the Spanish were usually very good at keeping records of their military actions. They never recorded any such attack. The Dark Legacy of Roanoke. The story of the lost colony isn't just a historical puzzle. It became a ghost story for a new nation. It was a warning that this new world was dangerous, mysterious, and could swallow you whole. It represents the fear of the unknown. For centuries, people have been obsessed with it. It has inspired books, plays, and TV shows. The name Croatoan has become a kind of spooky code word for an unexplainable disappearance. The dark legacy of Roanoke is the hole it left in the American story. It's a first chapter with a missing last page. The fate of those 115 people, including the first English child born in this new world, remains a blank space. It reminds us that no matter how much we think we know, some stories are simply lost to the whispering woods and the passing of time. The Man in the Hood. The Zodiac's reign of terror. Let's move forward in time to the late 1960s in Northern California. It was a time of peace and love, but a shadow fell over the San Francisco Bay Area. This shadow wasn't a post from history. It was a very real man. A man who killed for reasons nobody could understand. A man who loved to play a game with the police and the public. He gave himself a name, the Zodiac. Unlike the Roanoke mystery, which is silent, the Zodiac mystery is loud. The killer screamed for attention. He sent letters. He made phone calls. He created puzzles. And yet, after all this noise, the result is the same: a haunting silence. We still have no idea who he was. The Zodiac officially killed 5 people, though he claimed to have killed as many as 37. His attacks were brutal and seemed random, but it was what he did after the killings the game begins. In December 1968, on a cold night, 2 teenagers, David Faraday and Betty Lou Jensen, were on their first date. They parked in a quiet lover's lane. A second car pulled up beside them, and a man got out and shot them both, ending their lives. It was a shocking, but sadly, not entirely uncommon crime. Police had few leads. 7 months later, it happened again. Another couple, Darlene Farron and Michael McGough, were sitting in a car in a park. A man approached with a flashlight, blinding them, and then opened fire. Darlene was killed. Michael, though shot multiple times in the face and chest, miraculously survived. He was the first person to see the killer's face and live. A month later, the game truly began. A series of letters arrived at 3 major newspapers in San Francisco. The letters were all from the killer. In them, he gave details about the murders that only the killer could know, proving they were from him. But he did something else. Something that changed everything. Each letter included a piece of a strange puzzle, a cipher made of bizarre symbols. The killer demanded that the newspapers publish his cipher on their front page. If they didn't, he promised to go on a kill rampage. And at the end of his letter, he signed off with a new symbol, a circle with a cross through it, like a gun sight. It was the mark of the Zodiac, the ciphers and the taunts. A high school teacher and his wife managed to crack the first cipher. The message inside was terrifying. It wasn't a confession or an explanation. It was a manifest. The killer wrote, "I like killing people because it is so much fun. It is more fun than killing wild game in the forest because man is the most dangerous animal of all." He went on to say that the people he killed would be his slaves in the afterlife. The message was filled with spelling errors, whether real or on purpose. Nobody knew. This was the Zodiac's goal. He didn't just want to kill. He wanted to create fear. He wanted to build a legend around himself. He was turning murder into a form of entertainment, and the whole city was his unwilling audience. The attacks continued, and they got stranger and more daring. The Lake Berryessa attack, the Zodiac's most infamous crime. He approached another young couple having a picnic by a lake. This time, he was wearing a bizarre costume, a black executioner's hood, with his symbol stitched on the front, and sunglasses to hide his eyes. He tied them up before stabbing them repeatedly. He then walked over to their car and drew his symbol on the door with the dates of his other attacks. He wanted to link them all together. He was building his brand. The San Francisco murder. His final confirmed murder was his boldest. He shot a taxi driver, Paul Stein, in a nice neighborhood in the middle of San Francisco. He then took a piece of the driver's bloody shirt. A few days later, he mailed a piece of that bloody cloth to a newspaper along with another taunting letter. He was so confident that he even claimed to have waved at the police as they arrived at the scene. After that, the confirmed killings stopped, but the letters didn't. For years, he continued to write to the newspapers, taunting the police, proposing new ciphers, and threatening to blow up a school bus. He was a ghost who loved the spotlight, and then, as suddenly as he appeared, he went silent. The hunt for a ghost, the suspects. The police investigation was one of the biggest in California history. Thousands of people were investigated. There were many suspects, but one name has always stood out: Arthur Lee Allen. Allen was a former teacher who had been fired for inappropriate conduct. He seemed to fit the profile in many ways. The watch. He owned a Zodiac brand watch with the same symbol on it. The location. He lived and worked near where some of the attacks happened. The confession. A friend told police that Allen had once talked about an idea for a story, describing hunting people like animals, and calling himself Zodiac. The boots. He owned military-style boots that matched a footprint sound at one of the crime scenes. But for every piece of evidence that pointed to Alan, there was something that didn't fit. His handwriting didn't seem to match the Zodiac's letters. A DNA sample taken from one of the letter's envelopes didn't match his. His fingerprints didn't match any found at the scenes. He passed a polygraph test. Arthur Lee Allen died in 1992, and the police could never prove he was the killer. For over 50 years, amateur detectives and codebreakers have been obsessed with the Zodiac's unsolved ciphers. In 2020, one of his most complex ciphers, the 340 cipher, was finally solved by a team of private citizens. Everyone hoped it would reveal his name. But the message inside was just more of the same arrogant taunting, saying he wasn't afraid of being caught. The dark legacy of the Zodiac. The Zodiac killer's legacy is a powerful one. He fundamentally changed the relationship between crime, law enforcement, and the media. He showed that a killer could become a media celebrity, controlling the narrative and spreading terror far beyond his actual crimes. He created a template for future serial killers who crave fame. He wasn't just a murderer, he was a character he created. The costume, the name, the symbol, the puzzles, it was all part of his dark performance. The Zodiac's unresolved case leaves a scar on our culture. He is the ultimate boogeyman because he was real. He was a normal-looking man who could be your neighbor, who could be sitting next to you on a bus, and he got away with it. He proved that sometimes evil isn't a monster with a clear face. Sometimes it's just a man in a hood who walks out of the darkness, performs a terrible act, and then disappears back into the crowd, leaving behind only a question mark. The Silent Mountain, the Dyatlov Pass incident. Our final mystery takes us far away from the cities of America to the cold, lonely Ural Mountains in Russia in 1959. This story is different. It's not about a lost society or a taunting killer. It's about a force, something that happened to 9 experienced hikers that is so strange, so terrifying, and so unexplainable. It feels like it's from another world. The story is named after the group's leader, Igor Dyatlov. He and his 8 friends, all students at the university, were expert hikers and skiers. This was not a casual trip. They were aiming to get the highest certification for their skill. They knew what they were doing. They were prepared for the harsh, brutal cold of the Russian winter. They never came back. When a search party was finally sent to find them, what they discovered on the slopes of a mountain named Kolotsaya, which, in the local Mansi language, means it was a scene so bizarre that it has baffled investigators. for over 60 years. A scene that makes no sense. The search party first found the group's tent, and right away, things were wrong. The tent was half buried in snow, but it had been cut and ripped open from the inside. It was as if something inside the tent had made the hikers so terrified that they couldn't even take a second to open the flap. They had to slash their way out to the deadly cold. Then they found the first two bodies. They were about a mile away from the camp, down the slope, near the edge of a forest. They were lying next to the remains of a small fire. Here's the first strange detail. They were wearing only their underwear. In temperatures of -30 degrees Celsius, -22 degrees Fahrenheit, they were barefoot and nearly naked. 3 more bodies, including Igor Dyatlov's, were found between the tent and the forest. Their position suggested they had been trying to crawl back up the hill to the tent, and it is with these last 4 bodies that the mystery deepens into genuine horror. The unexplainable injuries. The first 5 hikers who were found had all died of hypothermia. They froze to death. That's a sad but understandable cause of death for someone stuck outside in a Siberian winter. But the last 4 were different. The medical examiner found they had suffered catastrophic injuries. One man had his skull completely crushed. ... 2 others had shattered ribs. The doctor who examined them said the force required to cause these injuries was equivalent to being hit by a car. They were incredibly powerful, bone-breaking impacts. And here is the most unsettling fact of all. There were no external signs of injury on their bodies. No bruises, no cuts, no soft tissue damage. Ludmila Dubinina was missing her tongue, her eyes, and part of her lips. So what have we got? 9 experienced hikers flee their tent in the middle of the night by cutting it open from the inside. They run out into freezing temperatures without proper clothes or shoes. Some die of cold, while others suffer massive internal injuries with no external wounds. One is found with missing facial parts. To top it all off, some of their clothing was later found to be radioactive. The official Soviet investigation in 1959 was brief and confusing. The final report concluded that the hikers had died as a result of a compelling unknown force. And with that, the case was closed, leaving a storm of questions that have never been answered. What happened on the Mountain of the Dead? There are dozens of theories, ranging from the scientific to the paranormal. Theory 1, an avalanche. This is the most accepted official explanation today. The idea is that a type of avalanche, called a slab avalanche, struck their tent in the night. It didn't bury them completely, but dumped a heavy load of snow on top, causing some of the internal injuries and creating panic. In their confusion and fear, they cut their way out and ran. In the darkness and blizzard, they got separated. The ones who froze were trying to get back to the tent or start a fire. The ones with the crush injuries may have fallen into the ravine where they were found. Problems with this theory. The investigators at the time saw no signs of an avalanche. The hikers' tracks leading away from the tent were orderly, not panicked and scattered like you'd expect after an avalanche. An avalanche doesn't explain the missing tongue or the radiation. Theory 2. Military weapons test. This theory suggests the hikers accidentally wandered into a secret military testing area. The Soviet military could have been testing some kind of concussive weapon that can create massive internal injuries without an external blast. This would explain the crush injuries and the secrecy surrounding the case. The radiation on the clothes could also be from military fallout. Maybe the hikers saw something they weren't supposed to see, and they were silenced. But this doesn't explain why they fled their tent in such a specific way. Theory 3. Infrasound. This is a fascinating scientific theory. Infrasound is a very low-frequency sound that is below the range of human hearing. Certain wind patterns, especially around mountains, can sometimes create powerful infrasound waves. Studies have shown that infrasound can have strange effects on the human body. It can cause feelings of intense panic, dread, and breathlessness. The theory is that the mountain created a pocket of infrasound that drove the hikers mad with irrational terror. They fled their tent in a state of pure panic, not knowing why. The rest of the events, the hypothermia, the fall into the ravine, followed from that initial moment of madness. The dark legacy of Dyatlov Pass. The Dyatlov Pass incident is the ultimate mystery of the unknown. Unlike Roanoke or the Zodiac, there is no human villain to point to. There is only a set of impossible facts. Its legacy is the way it makes us feel small. It's a story about 9 capable people who went into the wilderness and were completely overwhelmed by something. Whether that something was the power of nature, the secrets of a government, or a phenomenon we don't even have a name for yet, we don't know. The story gets under your skin because it breaks the rules of a good story. There is no motive. There is no weapon. There is no suspect. There is only a silent, frozen mountain and the 9 bodies that were found on its slopes, each one a piece of a puzzle that simply cannot be solved. It's a terrifying reminder that there are forces in this world that we do not understand. These stories, Roanoke, the Zodiac, and Dyatlov Pass, are separated by centuries and continents, but they are connected by a dark thread. They show us the limits of our own knowledge. They are empty spaces on the map of what we know. The dark legacy they leave behind is not just the memory of the dead, but a lingering feeling of uncertainty. They remind us that the world is still full of dark corners and unanswered questions, and that some stories may never, ever have an ending. If you want to dive into another mystery that was once thought to be unsolvable, click the video on your screen now.